Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sitting In Podcast. This is a conversation with athletes about real life. Today, we're sitting down with Elliott Davis. Elliott is a former track and field sprinter, the running type, and is now a current track sprinter in the cycling realm of things. That's been quite the transition, but yeah, the man's an athlete. So Elliott, I guess that's my quick rundown of you as a person and an athlete. So how would you describe yourself to the people listening?
So how I would describe myself is basically like exactly what Dalton was saying. I used to run track previously, and then one day I just decided to ride bikes. And that transition has been a big learning curve for me, and it's still a learning curve each day, but I'm loving every way of it. And I feel like it was the right transition just from like sport directly. It was almost seamless a little bit. So yeah.
What got you into running originally? Where'd you grow up, actually?
So I'm originally from Las Vegas, Nevada. I stayed there until I was 18 years old. Then I went to
hot
college.
out there, man.
Yeah, it's I think like in July, honestly, I get like 125. Peak day.
Yeah.
Where you actually don't want to go outside. You just don't go outside. That's it. And I ran track there throughout high school. I started in high school, and basically I always ran the 100 and 200. And my mother's like, "You should run the 4." I'm like, it's too far. I'm not
That's long distance, man.
I was like, that's long distance to me. I'm not doing that. But then I got convinced to run cross country. And then once I ran cross country, I knew what true pain was like at that point. So I was like, okay, this isn't that bad. So I ran the 4, did pretty well in the 4, got second in the state. And then when I wanted to go to college, my times were okay. But I was like, I want to like get a little faster. I wanted more time. And I also wanted to save money. I didn't want to like go to a school and then just not compete. So I went to junior college in Arizona for 2 years in central Arizona, basically the middle of Arizona. It's between Phoenix and Tucson. So in between there is just absolutely nothing.
So dramatic change from Vegas then, right?
Oh,
yeah.
From one desert hellhole to another desert hellhole.
Well, it's still hot. Yeah, desert to desert, still hot. But I did that for 2 years. And then one day I got a call from a school, it's University of Minnesota. And I was like, oh, it's just Minnesota. Like, cool.
Another desert, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
basically, yeah. I was like, oh, it's just Minnesota. How it's cold. Okay, I've been to Chicago. Whatever. I've been to Chicago. It's cold. My first winter in Minnesota, it was minus 60.
Oh my God,
So
dude.
there was about 3 days out of the year where like a polar vortex was basically like a winter hurricane, and a lot of just wind whirling, a lot of blizzarding. The wind chill, it'll probably be minus 20, but the wind chill will make it minus 60. So you have about 15 minutes to be outside.
Before you die.
Basically, like you're actively dying at that point. So yeah.
Did you own a jacket for that stuff, dude?
They gave us stuff.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
cool.
It was like, well, even the jacket I bought was not enough for that. They gave us like a good like down jacket, and it will save your life. Like there were times where I've been so cold that I was like, I probably need to start like running home.
What city is Minnesota in?
So it's right in Minneapolis. So there's downtown Minneapolis, and the campus is like right far off of it, right next to it.
Is that so? I think in like for like Purdue students and stuff like that, there's like tunnels under the school and all that.
So
is there that in Minnesota too?
Yeah. So we have tunnels, but they really go through just the main campus. The moment you live off campus, you're done. Like you're screwed. So you have to walk, but they have a really good bus system. The buses are heated. If you live off the train, you can ride the train, but it's all like safe. I don't think anybody died in my time since I've been there. So
we'll fact check that.
Yeah, we'll have to check on that, but I'm pretty sure nobody has. But I mean, people would go to the club, like we're going to the club, you just wear your jacket and then you just coat check for like $1. You put your jacket back on when you leave. That's it. Yeah. So people still go out no matter how cold it is. So yeah.
You got to get on the table, man. There's vodka to be cranked.
You got to get out. You can't sit inside, but yeah.
So they called you as like because this is like a little bit of insider stuff, because you ended up an All-American, didn't you? Or
in the NCAA, well, in one ways more than the other, yes. So basically how that happened was we made indoor nationals, and this was in 2019.
Wait, what's the difference between indoor and outdoor track? I didn't know.
So indoor and outdoor track is basically the difference is you run on a smaller track. So an outdoor track is 400 meters, where an indoor track is 200 meters.
Okay.
It's just shorter track. It's a little more banked, so you do start slanted. It's a lot more actually taxing on the knees to be inside, but if you run fast inside, you run way faster outside. So that's why we do both seasons. It's really good to get your time faster inside. So when you're outside, you're already like kind of peaking at that point. Not peaking, but
ready to go.
You're ready to go. Yeah. And once you're ready to go, like you already like have the tone of what the race should feel like already. And primarily some schools who don't have indoor tracks and they only train outside, you're already outside year round anyway. So it's outside track is always the better track, but indoor is still good to have sometimes too. But a lot of people don't race indoor because of the injury prone stuff like that.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So wait, back to my All-American question though, or
So it was 2019 when we were doing pretty good indoors for the 4x4 and the DMR distance medley relay. I think it's a 1200, a 400, 8, and a 1500, something like that. I think it's something like that. But distance races where the 400-meter runner plays a part in that, and the 4x4, which is 4 guys running the 400. So we were doing pretty good in that. We were going to nationals, and I was going for both relays. And this was actually in February 2020. So the same weekend that we were going to nationals, the same weekend that they shut the world down. So nobody from the entire country raced that year, period. It's like, obviously we were still ranked, I think like in the top 8 or whatever, 8 or like 10 or whatever, how many number, and they'll still give you All-American for that. But we never got to race at that point. So yeah, it was a hard time.
All-American by default or what?
Just by default. Okay. I mean, like we were ranked already but we never really ran. But yeah.
So growing up in Vegas, right? Why running? How running? Because that seems like it's an outdoor sport for the most part, except indoor tracks, I guess, in Minnesota, that makes sense. But
we have outdoor tracks like around Vegas, like in northern Arizona and stuff, but it wasn't really a thing. You just run outside all year round. Okay. But how I got into it was my mother ran track previously, and I would like go around her like grandmother's house, or my grandmother's house, and just say like, oh, this is cool, like track and field, it sounds fun. And I always watched it at the Olympics, but I never thought of running it until I got into high school, and then I just tried it and stuck with it. I did marching band previously, and I wanted to do other sports, but that was considered a winter sport, so you couldn't do anything. You couldn't play football or basketball. So I was like, okay, I got track or baseball, and it was track. So
you're balancing those two things, marching band.
Yeah, and I did that. So I played the bass drum. So in the drum line, I was probably like little short, probably 150 pounds.
Did you watch the movie Drumline, dude?
Yeah, I did. So the biggest drum, the guy in the back, usually a taller guy, but it was me. I was probably like 150 pounds, super small, tiny dude. But that probably made me like the strongest I'll ever be at that point because those drums were so heavy.
Big ass drum.
But there was a point in time where it was starting to clash a little bit to where I was trying to take marching band really seriously and take track pretty seriously. And it was just like, okay, I need to make a decision now. So my senior year, I decided not to do marching band. And that was when I just really was like serious about track and started actually, going to more outside practices because I had a club coach on the side who would coach me in the summer, who basically helped me get to the point to where I was for college or get at least ready for college. So yeah.
I didn't even think about the fact that marching band is like a winter sport?
Yes.
Do you think
it's serious? Like it's no joke. You're there. If not, I think you're at marching band for some practices more than actual other sports. Like because you have to understand all the movements, all the counter movements, how not to fall, how not to trip. When you're crossing past another person marching, you don't run into them. Like
and you're playing music.
And you're playing music on top of that.
It's like its own talent.
The music is like, I guarantee the music is like maybe 40% of it, but the rest of it is actually like the marching. Like you really have to be like mentally sound. Like you have to be there.
That's so wild. That's like one of those things that like, I mean, you see like the Stanford band doing the Stanford band.
Think of like the Ohio State band. They have like 300 people in it.
Dude, their stuff is cool though.
Like to remember all that stuff, that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
So
can you get a scholarship?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
You can
go to a full 4 years of college off of that.
No shit.
Yeah.
So wait, what started you? So goodness. So your mom ran track.
Yeah.
Did your mom also play the bass drum or what?
She did not. She played like the clarinet.
Oh, right on. But she was musically inclined too.
Yeah, musically
so she's
inclined. And like in the wintertime, I played the bass. In the summertime when we weren't marching, I played the bass clarinet. So it's a more larger version of a clarinet, kind of like a didgeridoo a little bit, if you know what that looks like. But I played that in like the summertime and the spring, and then in the wintertime we had the marching band stuff. So I would switch off every time. So yeah.
And were you good at track like when you first ran?
So when I first ran, I was okay at the 100, and it's kind of weird. I had actually a strange career in track and field. It's like I was starting the really short stuff, and I became really fast in that, and then towards the end, I got a little bit better at the short stuff, and then I was still okay at the 400. But when I started running track, I did the 100 and the 200. I just wanted to be, fastest guy.
Yeah,
I was okay. We had some older people who were faster than me, but I was always like, stay in their shadow, trying to like do what they do, keep up with them. And then I did that until my junior year when I ran the 400 just to like fill up space to get points. And it was a hard race. It was It was sandy. It's like we have a sandstorm season in Nevada, so it's like a little sandy. And that was the time I decided to run the 400 for the first time. I didn't do horrible, but it was just like, that's like, okay, like it wasn't horribly hard, but maybe I can do this like more. So then I trained in the summer with my coach, Coach Lance from Vegas Lightning Track Club. He's going to probably hear this and lose his damn mind.
Is he not a public facing dude?
No, he loves he loves it. Cool. So he'll hear this and lose his mind. But he basically helped me make that turn in track and field. And he would push you to the point to where he wants to see your limits. Okay, let's rebuild from breaking that limit and now push to a new limit. And that summer of like junior year to senior year, it was like just a switch and everything changed. I went from running like 56 in the 400 to like 47. Like that's kind of an unheard of thing. Like that's like something you think like, oh, he's like on drugs. Like that's not like a normal thing.
Drop, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, that's
7,
just too
8, 9
drastic
seconds.
of a drop. And after that, it was just like only up and up from there. So yeah.
And then when the world shut down, like what was?
Well, I want to talk about him finding his limit first.
Okay, yeah.
And
Basically-
we'll go to that. But like,
basically the
you
limit-
said you found your limit.
So basically, like it's like, okay, so picture this. It's Vegas. It's 100 degrees in the summer, and the workout is you got like 5 400s. Okay, by the third one, you're absolutely done, but you're on the floor, and he's gonna pick you up. He's like, okay, like look, I just want you to do this, just to do it. I just want you to see that. I just want to see you get it done, and the idea of just getting it done, it develops that mental state where it's like, okay, I know this sucks, but I can do it. I know I can do it. And that's what that limit pushing is like for.
So you can go a little bit further.
Because you know you can.
Than what you thought you could.
You know you can. So when you continue to push that, you'll get faster once you continue to push that. So yeah.
No limits. Anyway.
Why bikes?
Why bikes?
I'm always so surprised because like people who get into cycling late. Did you ride bikes like as a kid?
I mean, like, you know, like to go like to the park and all that crap.
Yeah.
Like not like to a point to where it was exercise. Like we in Vegas, we had like a desert, and where my house was so we lived next to a Boys and Girls Club, and the way to get there was like this little like it was actually like a mountain bike trail. It was pretty cool. But I wasn't really into cycling back then. So we'd take like the trail. It's like a little pump track. You know, you do a little whatever, get to the place you're going to. It's like a little shortcut, and that's it. Like that was my ever bit of cycling. But like I did like watch the tour sometimes as a child, just to, like watch it. I didn't really know anything about, you know, the greats of cycling at that time, or even like what type of bikes they were. But how I found cycling was basically I had a bike, and I think this was 2018. I had a bike, and it just like, you know, bike problems happen, bike breaks, chain, whatever.
Classic.
So I went to this shop in Minnesota. It's called Eric's Bike Shop. And
Shouts out to Eric Bike Shop. We'll see.
no, Eric's Bike Shop is cool, but I've never like been there. Like that's not like the shop that I love. You'll hear about that in a second. But it's like I went there just like get stuff fixed, and like, okay, I get the bill. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, I'm like a college kid. I'm like, damn, this is expensive. I'm calling my parents like, Dad, like shit's like $140. He's like, what'd you do? I'm like, I don't know. So then I'm like, okay, I don't want to like ever pay that again. That's a lot of money. Like to pay that crap.
I want to time out and just real quick, looking at $140 on a bill for doing bike maintenance or whatever now. Isn't that funny? Like
that's nothing to me now.
Exactly, right? Anyway, back to what you're saying.
I see it now, and I'm just like, it's my fault. Yeah. But,
so $140 on your bill, you called your parents, go ahead.
Yeah, I call them, and then it's like, okay, so I don't want to pay that anymore. I don't want to ever have to pay that much again. So obviously, no Park Tool is from Minnesota. And they have like some courses online. They have everything that you could ever possibly do to a bike online in their YouTube channel. So I literally studied that, like actually studied, like it's a damn near course. I should have credit for that. And I watched all the videos just so many times that I learned how to fix a bike on my own. So anything that happened, I would just go buy the part and put it on. That was it. I was like one of those guys who would basically like a tinkerer at that point. And how I really got into it was I had the same bike moving on to about September that year. It's like the day after I met Tina. So me and Tina went on a date. We walked past my bike. So I locked it at the Athletic Village through Minnesota, and I live off of that street a little bit. I locked my bike there. Me and Tina were going towards our date, and I saw the bike. I was like, oh, maybe I should, take my bike with me and then just take it home. I didn't take it. And I come back the next day, the bike was stolen.
Gone.
I was like, it's gone. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, whatever. I wasn't mad because I knew that I was dumb enough to leave it there. So I wasn't that upset. It was like $100 bike anyway. It's whatever. But
Well, it's $240 bike now. You just
$240 bike. Yeah, because shout out to Eric's bike shop. It was a $240 bike. But once I did that, I got a fixie, and that bike like was near and dear to me. Like that, if you get a fixie, like it's like everything to you. Like it's the most shittiest bike ever. But you fix up all these like fancy parts, Sugino 75, carbon fork, whatever wheels, and it's like everything to you. And I rode that bike like a little bike messenger, like delivery for food for like most of like the winter and then some of the summer. But what really got me into the cycling scene was I got a job as a bike mechanic at this shop called Behind Bars Bike Shop. So shout out Behind Bars Bike Shop.
Shout out Behind Bars.
Not
Bike
Eric.
Shop. Yeah. Screw you guys, Eric.
So I started working there. How I got the job though, I went to obviously like you don't have all the tools at home to fix a bike. Like nobody has the most craziest tool. For example, like a crown race tool. Nobody has that.
Yeah.
You can't buy that anywhere. So I went to the shop and I was applying for the job, and this lady, Jules Collins, was like, hey, I told her I need this crown race installed on the bike. I also happened to apply for the job. I just wanted to bring my resume in as well. She said, hey, I'll teach you how to do this, and I'll give you it for free if you take the job or if you take the interview. And I took the interview, and then obviously I learned how to do it. And I was only there for like maybe 2 months, but like, because it was like around that time, Tina already proposed the idea to move to San Diego. So around those 2 months, it was probably just like me and just, was it Jules, Bing, Charles, Matt, Chelly, Ashley, and Chuck. And like, we just had like the time of our life for like 2 months. And then when I had to leave, I like cried because it was like, dang, like I just met all these people, created all these bonds, now I have to leave. But when I was moving to San Diego, a lot of them were saying like, oh, you should try like racing. And I was like, racing bikes, it's whatever. Like, it's, what were you going to say, Max?
It's dumb. Yeah.
Not dumb. It was just like, I just never thought of like, doing that. Like after running track, I kind of like became really lazy. If you ever speak to my college track coach, he'll tell you I'm one of the laziest runners ever. I'm the slowest walker.
Isn't that why you're a sprinter, dude?
Like slowest walker, longest eater, whatever he has to say, it's probably right. But when I started racing, I tried to race track lacrosse, which was fun. It's hard, but it's fun.
Yeah, for the people out there, what's track lacrosse? Let's explain that.
So track lacrosse, basically you take a track bike. Well, now they have track bikes that are made to fit wider gravelish tires, and you just ride fixed through gravel. You have to skid. You don't have any brakes. You have to be very careful. It's fun though. It's really like a really good way to like learn how to survive and not die. And you meet a lot of people along the way, like through our couple like brands up there. Like we had All City Bikes that obviously isn't, I don't think they're a brand anymore, but
They're still around.
they're still
Yeah, I
around.
think
Okay,
so.
they're still kicking, barely. But All City would always host this like track lacrosse championship in Minnesota. Like, it'd have like 100 people that you've never seen before, but they all love track lacrosse. And it's good to just get that community around that. And then I tried road, and I did one road race, just like a not even like a crit. It was like a tour race, like a couple miles. It's too far. That shit sucked.
Too far.
It was like,
Oh, man.
it was like 50 miles. Not even
Right,
not even
yeah.
that bad.
It's like a Grand Fondo or something.
Not even a grand final. It was just like a checkpoint race. You just get to this point, you just sit. Like you have to do like a manifesto race, like almost like an alley cat, but like different,
Yeah.
but more official.
Was this in Minnesota or out here?
In Minnesota.
In Minnesota, okay.
If you go out far enough, it's just backcountry.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's good riding, but it's just like you're just out there. And if you don't have a partner, which I didn't, it was tough. But then Chuck, who knows Timothy Jackson, if you know Timothy Jackson, yeah, Sugar. So he knows Sugar, and he said, hey, you should ride the track, like race track. And they all agreed. Everyone at the shop like, hey, you should do that. Let's do that. Because there used to be a velodrome in Minnesota. It used to be a wood, I don't know if it's a 250, but it was a wood velodrome in Minnesota at the time. It closed in 2018 due to it not being covered. It had a bunch of snow on it, obviously, and got destroyed.
Who would have guessed?
Yeah.
I know. Who would've
So
guessed
shocking.
if you didn't cover it. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So once Tina and I moved to San Diego, and I'll tell you the story about how that idea just came up. But I took a class in October. We moved out there in like July. Took a class in October.
Just for the viewers at
Yeah,
home, Tina
she's in
is
the
like
room.
is in the room.
Tina's here with us. So if I do that, I'm asking for clarification. We moved out here in July. I took a class in October, and then I was racing, and within like I think racing ends in what? October?
Like, it ends in October.
Yeah,
Okay, so I took the 2 classes and I started racing like for the last couple days of that thing. And that's where I met Corey for the first time.
What year was this?
21.
Oh, okay.
21, yeah. So I met Corey, Calvin, Rex, or Roger.
Those are all the local San Diego track sprinters at the Velodrome.
At the time, yeah. And then now I'm here. I think it's been a long run. But how the story of Tina and I moving to San Diego, she went here in 2019 and really loved it. And she was just like, oh, I have family out here. Just keep a couple cousins out here. And all of a sudden, one day she was just like, hey, what if we just left? And yeah, sure.
Nice.
As a joke, whatever. Yeah. And then it came to about January, February-ish. And she's like, we're going to graduate. Like, let's go. Like, let's just leave. And then we just, around like April, she started planning a little more. And then we just dipped. That was really it. Like, we just had no plan and we just left.
So really, if it weren't for her,
If it was not for Tina, I would not be anywhere else. I probably would still be in Minnesota, freezing my butt off every year on and year out, doing whatever.
isn't it funny how really small life decisions like that put you in positions that end up affecting
like-
the whole outcome of your life?
As crazy as it sounded, it was like a big decision, but it was
Yeah.
like one of like the most beneficial.
How did you and Tina meet?
Tinder.
Yes, dude.
So
Dang. Look at this.
So I'm not gonna like lie anymore. Like we had a story. So in Minnesota,
You had a story. Wait, I want to hear the story.
the story is good. The story is good. So in Minnesota, there's 2 pizza shops that are always in competition with each other. There's Mesa Pizza and Frank and Andreas. You're either, like there's 2 types of people in this world: Mesa Pizza, Frank and Andreas. Tino's a Frank and Andreas person. I was a Mesa Pizza guy. Mesa Pizza makes like specialty pizzas, like like corn pizza, like macaroni pizza.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah. And Frank's does that, but a little bit better. So when Tina and I first met, we met at Mesa, and Tina was like, no, we have to go to Frank's. I was like, why? Frank's is whatever. She's like, no, you have to go to Frank's. And then once I tried Frank's, like, okay, maybe she knows something. And then,
She's on to it.
yeah. And then I tell people ever since then, that's when I started like listening to her, and I stuck with it ever then.
Her pizza choices really dialed
I mean,
things in.
it was pretty good. Like, but no, we really met on Tinder. But that story about the Frank Andreas stuff is true. But yeah,
That was
we
just
met on
like your first date after you had
Yeah.
agreed to meet after Tinder.
Yeah,
Nice.
that was our meetup spot, and then she's like, "No, let's go here." So yeah,
Dude, pizza shop to... I always love like when these like little decisions like end up cascading.
it's like just a snowball effect. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
Your life would be wildly differently if you had swiped the other way.
yeah, literally, exactly.
So I'm thinking about this like transition, right? You start growing up marching band. There's so many decisions that you could have made that would have gone that way, right? So like, I guess I'm curious, to run track, to stay athletic, to do all these things, what were you doing between track and then bike racing? Was there any gap there? Like, what did you want to do with your life, man, besides
Yeah, so,
sports? Because like sports, you're kind of doing what you're doing now unintentionally. So the intentional route when you were about to graduate, what was the plan? What was the next step?
I mean, Tina still wanted to move to San Diego, which was still going to be the plan, but
Yeah.
I was basically just in my little college apartment. I was a hermit. I was just kind of just going to work, came back.
What was, so just bike shop life?
But no exercising. I was just going to work.
You're going to come out to
And
San
the
Diego
worst-
and bike shop life it?
Dude, that's exactly what I did.
right.
So at the shop, we are next to this brewery. I forgot what it's called. What is that brewery called? Oh,
Rouleur maybe? Or
no, not Rouleur.
What shop are you at here?
No, it's in Minnesota. There's a
okay.
shop that gives like a crowler. I think it's like a 16-ounce just can of just straight beer.
Okay.
It's so good. And I was just hermit. I would just go to work.
Hang out, drink your
I
pints?
would commute. Like that's the only exercise I was getting was bike commuting. I would commute to work, go to work. As soon as I hit 5 p.m., you get a beer, go home. That's it. I was doing that for maybe like 2 months.
That's the American
Midwest
dream, dude. Yeah.
lifestyle, my
that's as
dude.
Midwest as it can possibly get.
Yep.
And the sun set at like 9 p.m. It was awesome. Like that was it. And then when I moved to San Diego, I worked at Moment Bike Shop
Okay.
in Old Town for a month again. And then I got like another job at a corporate company. And but yeah, I just bike shop life, Minnesota, bike shop life in San Diego. And then
What was the corporate job?
so I was a customer success associate. I was okay at it. I wasn't the best at it.
Do you feel like there was a lot of successing customers when you did that?
What do you mean?
What does that mean, man? Like, what was a customer success?
associate is like basically you were assigned a certain amount of clients.
Okay.
When you would do with those clients is where you have to take and kindle the relationship of a product. So the product that we had was aviation manuals.
Okay.
So basically, I made sure that companies were able to make their manuals go from paper to a more digital format. Because a lot of companies, if you've ever been in a plane before, they have the flight bag. that flight bag. In some cases, in small planes, it's so heavy it can count as weight.
All right. That's why they check my bag at the gate.
Dude,
God
Max,
dang it.
so I used to work at a helicopter company in high school, and you take this flight bag. The bag is probably like 50, 70 pounds. Like it's counterweighting the helicopter. So you have to account for that bag. And what our company was for was to digitize those manuals so you can keep it on like an iPad. And that was it. Yeah.
Wait, so what does that do to if it's counterbalancing and you have to account for it in the helicopter? What about when you take it out of there entirely and it goes digital? Like
then you can probably put more people in there.
Oh.
Well, I mean, there's always a maximum of people, but that's just less weight.
Elliott Davis changing the aviation industry one manual at a time.
I was okay at it though. I was so at it, but yeah.
And then so you started track riding.
Yeah. So when I started track riding, how I got into that was I did some like races in San Diego. You know, like a lot of them are endurance races, like elimination points. Madison. I never did a Madison. I probably will never do a Madison. But
but you had to do the track class in the first place.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. And I was like, okay, this is like, it's a little hard. It's endurance. I was maybe about the same weight I was now, a little bit, maybe 10 pounds less, but I wasn't like not healthy. I was like a little chunky, a little bit. Tina will tell you, I was a little chunky. But I did some races like, okay, like this is hard. Let me try is there like some type of like sprint in this sport? I didn't even know that track sprinting existed at the time.
You're like, I gotta do less, man.
I was like, there's gotta be something. So I messaged the San Diego Velodrome like Facebook chat. I'm like, hey, like, is there like any type of sprint or faster racing? And then Roger messaged me. He said, hey, like, I do sprints at this time and this time and this time. Be there. So I just showed up at that time and I told Roger like what I'm coming from, where I come from in the sport. And he said, okay, let's get to work. Like, that's it. That was really it. And then I trained with Roger from 21 to I think like maybe end of 22 to 23, because I think he became the president of the Velodrome, so he got a little more busy. But yeah, I just did that. I did nationals my first time last year. It was okay. I got knocked out the first round of the sprint. It was okay.
I mean, you qualified.
Yeah.
Qualified for the sprint.
Yeah, I mean, I qualified with my time, my 200, which needs to get better now. Did a team sprint. It was fun. I was man 3. If you ever done a team sprint as man 3, it's pretty tough.
It's basically endurance.
I mean, it's long enough to be considered endurance, but like you're getting a lot of draft.
And you're a 400 runner too, so a little bit longer effort doesn't kill you, right?
Yeah, it does still a little bit.
All right.
I've never done a kilo yet. The day I do a kilo, and if our coach is watching,
I thought you did a drop bar kilo. Didn't you?
That was for practice. Like I'm talking like a real
kilo.
Yeah, if I did the day I do a real kilo, you're not seeing me the next day. It's gonna be a rough day. I mean, I know like I can probably do okay, but I know it's gonna suck.
I feel like there's like a very important thing that happened right after you started riding with Roger, and that's Search for Speed.
Yeah. So after like Roger became president and kind of like just our like sprinting program was just kind of like me, Corey Calvin, kind of just training for Nats, getting ready. Search for Speed was starting. Geez, I can't believe this was all in 2023. 2023 was actually one of the busiest years of my life because so much has happened. I had my hospitalization for my crash. I had Nats. I had Search for Speed, the integration camp, Vision GP. Dude, that was
Which
crazy
one do you want to talk about first?
Yeah.
Dude, it was like
there's an order of operation. How about we go through 2023 in order?
Okay, so 23 in order. We're training for Nats.
Okay.
The week before Nats.
And this is just you training under Roger here at the San Diego Velodrome for nationals with Corey and Calvin.
Yeah.
Cool.
Vision was after that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were just training, getting ready for Nats. We have a Monday night sprint at the track.
And Nats is in like August, September time frame?
No, Nats is in July.
Oh, July. Okay. So
it was in June this year, right? Or last year. It was earlier last year, right?
Last year was 2023. So yeah.
Yeah, last year.
Okay, it was in July, same days. We were just training, and we were going to LA to do the Monday night sprints because we don't have a lot of time to train in LA. So we were going up there just to do whatever. And I was doing a sprint. I got my, I don't even think we did 200s. We just kind of just went into it straight up. Had our races. I think on my second race, my tire flattened and I rolled a tubular. Basically, if you roll a tubular, just rolls right off the wheel.
It's a death sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I rolled it off at like 40. And obviously, you're going so fast, you're sliding, you don't know what the heck to do. And then I basically slid so hard and smacked the track. I slid up track all the way almost to the boards, slid back down. But I would have been okay. I would just had some serious burn. Like I have some burns now, which are normal. But what got me was the Giro Arrowhead's visor. Basically, you know how the visor is all the way over here. that broke when I crashed and it went sideways and it took my eyebrow off. So I bled so much that they're like, we can't stitch this up. You have to go to the hospital. So I went to UCLA Medical Center in I think like Torrance, California, and they just were asking me in the hospital, like, what would you do to like make this happen? And I tell them.
A very unique scenario.
Yeah, I tell them, and they're just like, that exists? And like I tell them, like, go to Velodrome. It's like, that exists? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, why would you do that? I'm like,
you're like, I'm asking myself that right
dude,
now.
Like it's the week before Nats. I just absolutely wrecked. Like my bones are sore, my skin is ripped off. And you're asking me why I would do this. Like obviously I have a reason. But and then Nats was like the week after, so I had to just suck it up. Basically was back on the bike on the Saturday prior to Nats and just kind of just try to just stay normal, do normal training, and then went to Nats. Just kept on going from there. Did my 200, did 11.4, which is okay. I mean, still qualified, but for my first Nats ever. And then did the team sprint, and that was it for Nats. Then we went to Vision, and Vision is actually a unique experience because, like, you know, you win a couple A races in San Diego, you're like, oh, cool, I'm good, right?
Yeah.
Then you go to Vision, and then like people from like, you know, other countries show up, and you're just like,
there's dudes from Argentina there.
and you're just like, oh my God, like the world is so big, I'm getting cooked. Like I'm getting fried, and you're doing your best, and you realize like I need a lot more training to do, like just to keep up. And yeah,
I feel like some people would be discouraged by that experience, but you instead were like, I need to train more.
It's
dude.
dehumanizing, but it's just like you have to experience that once. Like even in track and field, like from running, you know, you have a good time. Like like. It depends on the conference you're in with track too. Like there was times where I like ran amazing and I was like ranked pretty high in the NCAA, and like you get to some schools where it's just like guys are like, you know, 210, 220 running the 400 as fast, if not as fast, and like actual football linebackers just moving. And you just have to just realize like they're good, but to be that good, like I have to work for it. And that's what that Vision GP was like basically for me. But with that, prior to that, in April, I did the Search for Speed trial, and right around my birthday, I think it was like April 19th or something like that. And I did the trial, did like 1,700 watts for the first time, 1,800 for the second time. They said, okay, you should come to the combine. And the combine isn't as structured as it is now. I'm saying it was less structured before. They have a lot more tests now in the combine. So in the combine, it was a 40-yard dash, watt bike, reaction test, and then a vertical jump. And then we had a final combine after that, which was way worse.
And these are all things that you're probably naturally already pretty decent at. Reaction time, track makes sense.
Exactly, yeah.
You're 40.
I ran the fastest 40 I ever did. I ran a 4.4. That was the fastest 40 I ever ran. But training for that 40 was, I thought my legs were going to blow up. So this is the first time I've ran since I was 23 years old. I was 25. And running again, like training for that, my body was like crying. It was like, what are you doing? I was so afraid my hamstrings were going to just tear. And luckily they didn't through that. But went through, passed on, got the invitation to the final combine. I think I hit 1,800 watts again. Like nothing really big. Because when you're on those bikes and you're on like normal pedals, you can't hit more than 1,800 watts. Like if you're in like flat shoes, you can't.
Yeah, that's my limiter too. I would probably do like 1,900 if it weren't for the flat pedals. Yeah.
If you're like clipped in, strapped in, you can easily hit more. But it was the final combine was the worst. It was me and Corey, and we're sitting there, and Aaron Hartwell, who's the head coach of USA Track and Field, I think he's the director of track now, but I think back then he was the head coach of USA. I just said USA Track and Field. Jesus Christ. USA Cycling for track sprinting. And he was there. So like, okay, like the pressure's a little high. Like we're a little stressed.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Yeah, like he's him. We're a little worried. So me and Corey are sweating. But the test that we had, it was a 6 second, 30 second, then a 4-minute test. So that was the UCI protocol back then. It still is now. Obviously not back then. That was literally last year. It still is the protocol. It's a 6 second, 30, and a 4-minute. So the 6 was cool. 6 was other cool. I did like 18, something like that. And then 30-minute was, I think, like average.
30 second.
30-minute. Jesus Christ. 30-second test. I don't even know what I did that time, but the 4-minute test came around, and you're already like, you're cooked. You're done. You're on the floor. And then they're looking at you like, okay. They're like, okay, come on. And I'm like, for what? So like what you want to do is, I mean, you've done a 4-minute test, like a real one.
Yeah.
But when you do it after that, the protocol, you're like trying to pace yourself. You're just trying to just breathe and be on the bike. And I think we averaged like 460 for 4 minutes, which is not a lot for,
Yeah, but after those efforts, it is.
After those efforts, it's okay. But you get off that bike after the 4 minute and you're just like hazy eyed, like tunnel vision. You just want to just sleep. And you just lay for like 15 minutes and just sleep. It was the worst thing. But,
and will you talk about like for a second, what is Search for Speed? Like,
yeah. So I've done it enough times to actually give a little spiel about it. So Search for Speed is, there's two sides of the coin of Search for Speed now. Before it was just a talent integration program, but now there's two sides to the coin to where it's talent integration and it's community outreach. So what I've done a few times I've actually gone to Detroit recently in the past 3 weeks to go to work with the Velodrome. If you don't know what the Velodrome is, it's a velodrome in Detroit. It's a lot smaller than LA. It's 166 meters, deeper banking, about 50-degree banking, plywood track, very nice track. They do a lot of Madison national championships there. But I was working with them basically to get kids into their junior program. So we're going to different schools in Detroit and just basically having kids just test and say, hey, like, is this something you want to do? Like, we will give it to you for free. We will pay for your bike, all your travel to junior nats. Everything is paid for the entire summer. So we had a couple kids out. I haven't checked on them in a while, but we trickled in maybe 2 or 3 kids, and it's going pretty good. So yeah. But when I did it, Search for Speed was more talent integration, where USA Cycling was reaching out into the local athletic community of anybody who wanted to basically try out to be a track sprinter. So Corey tried out, and I think Calvin did as well. And I was like, well, like, shit, I want to try out. Like, it looks cool. It looks fun. And yeah, it's basically what they took was a pool of 2,000 athletes. In that 2,000 athlete pool, I think they took like maybe 50 to 100 for the final combines. And then they took, I think it was like 15 of us into a camp. And then out of that camp, they took 6 of us into the development team pool. So that's where I'm at now.
So you're actually you're in the development team for Team USA, right?
Development pool, yes.
Yeah. So I feel like we're jumping the gun a little bit here, but how has it been now working like within USA Cycling?
So like working within USA Cycling, the training is a lot more structured. It reminds me a lot of like collegiate track where, go in and you do your job. That's what you're supposed to do. If you go and do your job consistently and do it correctly, you will improve. So that's really what it should be. My training before was just kind of like a lot on my own. And now that it's structured, like I feel like I'm like more at peace with myself. I've been in for about, 2 months now. Like I'm still like struggling a little bit here and there, getting used to like the training style, but it's like I'm improving a little bit piece by piece. So at least that's the good part. So yeah.
So coming from a track and field background, you've seen what training progression looks like. Is it hard for you transitioning to a completely new sport? And I wouldn't say that you have to start over, but the training probably looks much different, right? And so there's probably a lot of learning happening. How do you adjust to or deal with like this essentially feeling like a fish out of water in some ways, I'm sure?
So from a lifting standpoint, it's the exact same thing as a track and field runner, as a track sprinter. You're doing the exact same thing, power clean, squat, whatever it may be. It's like if I showed you a lifting plan from right now to my college track, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Being on the bike, obviously it's different. Being on the bike, a lot of like just different techniques is like racing track, and that velodrome is like, a lot of balance, a lot of counter movements to prevent crashing or prevent, detrimental things from happening. Like you lose a race because, you didn't move at this right time, or different push points where to push on the track. So it's still a lot of fish out of water moments for me because I was never thinking of that in San Diego, because San Diego is so shallow of a track. You don't think anything of that. You never thought of like, let me train for tighter corners in LA. You don't think about that. So yeah.
Was it humbling feeling like you kind of were like starting over? I mean, like, cause you made it as a track and field athlete, right? Like running at Minnesota that's like, until you get into pro running, like that's basically like as high as you can get.
Yeah, you're competing against, everyone who's trying to go for the same thing as like winning a national championship. Like it's, you're competing against thousands of kids who have the same crazy goal that you have, who want it, if not more than you do. But yeah, it's a lot more wider when track sprinting in the US is very small.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you feel like making this pivot though is starting over, or does it feel like a natural progression forward?
Yeah, so like even though I raced track like, very small, like in San Diego and then or as like a small newer person, I felt more in a community back then. Not that I feel in a community now. I always feel way more in a community with Team USA than I feel I've ever felt in my life. But when I got into it, I do feel like I started over. Like it's like, okay, like new life started, like training day one actually starts now. Like that's what it feels like a little bit. So yeah.
And do you feel like that vision, like, I mean, I was there, so this is some insider information, but like, do you feel like Vision GP was like this moment where like, does that sit in your memory as like a big turning point where you were like,
well, I learned like really fast that the world is bigger than I think it is.
Yeah.
Like my little world in San Diego is very tiny compared to wherever else. Mm-hmm. Like every track is different. Like even in Detroit, like even like racing there, it was like the world is bigger than you think it is. Like it's not, you know, you're not going to show up and be like, okay, there's people there who know that track. There's people there who train there every day, who know when to push in that track and when to like make the moves to pass you. So it's like, yeah.
And that's like, do you think of that? I do think it's so interesting that like you've found this like, I'm trying to figure out how I want to say this. You've taken like, cause I mean, I was at Vision, like Vision was rough for a lot of people.
It's a wake up call. Like
I think it was a wake up call for almost everyone.
I mean, you come into it like, oh, okay, it's just a couple Americans. How hard can it be?
No, it's some specimens.
And then some just creatures show up from Canada and Argentina, and they just walk, they mop the floor with you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that I feel like was like, do you see like in your training, like that was the moment where it was like, okay, like I've been sitting back a little bit, and then like what changed in like mindset, daily life for where you were like, okay, well, I was competitive at a local level and now I want to be competitive at a national level.
And an international level.
And an international level, yeah.
I don't even know what I was feeling at that moment, but I know that I was probably like terrified because it's just like, oh my God, like I need to like ante up.
Did you have goals and aspirations of Team USA, potentially Paris 2024, stuff like that, right? That's out there that exists in the track cycling realm. Like it's an Olympic sport. Like there's stuff going on. I'm sure you had those aspirations as a runner.
Yeah.
But then when you started like racing track lacrosse, I'm betting that the last thing on your mind was like, I'm going to go to the Olympics on my bicycle. Like now you're in this position where that's
now
a real,
could be a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like
when I started it, I just didn't think of, you know, I was just going to be like just some guy who rides bikes. Like that was it. And then once I started riding at San Diego and I went to nationals for the first time, it kind of like, okay, this is cool. Like I want to try this. Like how do you move forward in the sport? And then that's when Search Street opened up. It just happened to open up at that time. Like I didn't think that was going to happen at all. I had no plan for that, really. I just was just probably just going to still race track. Maybe go to like, I don't know, Burnaby a couple times. That would be like the most international thing I'd ever done. So yeah.
What motivates you then to even do the thing now? Was it the competition aspect of it? Was it just pushing yourself in a new sport? Like
I feel like, well, we have a good team around us now, like of like men and women who really like push each other and build each other. And we kind of train integrated right now, which is good to where we see, you know, what it takes to be at this level, like what you have to, how much you need to be lifting, how much you need to be resting, eating, or how focused you need to be at that level. It's like that kind of motivates us to like push at them, and then they can push back at us to help us be better. So it's like I like it a lot.
You're kind of nipping at their heels, right? Because they're currently on the thing.
They're pretty far. We're not nipping. Okay. We're pretty like we can keep up with them in training, but there's a point to where that different level of mentality that they have will alone like destroy us.
What do you think that is?
They have a lot more.
Is it experience? Is it fight or
experience, fight, and just really it's just like, you know, just the dog, like literally the dog in you. That's
literally
what it is. Like it's just like when you like if you ever like race them at like a Monday night sprint, you realize like their whole demeanor is different in the race. They're not thinking about like how should I say this? They're not thinking about just beating you. It's like how they can beat you like even more to basically like it's like they're trying to confuse you like in a match sprint, like, you know, it's all cat and mouse, but their tactics are so dialed and so minute that they have so many different thoughts running in their head. Like if you do this, I'm gonna do this. So by the time you like make the move, they're already making their second move to counter that move. And you're not ready for that. Like if you're as a new person, you don't expect that. And it kind of like scares you because you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna back off. And
it's a game of chess.
It's chess, and yeah, it's crazy. But yeah.
Was vision when you found out that you were playing checkers?
Yeah. What was it? The Kieran. Like, I'm thinking like, okay, like how hard?
I just got to sprint around these 5 guys.
Dude, yeah. Let me just go around these 5 guys. And it's like, what is it? Who's that guy on the Seahawks that rides? Is it Luke Wilson?
Luke Wilson.
Yeah.
And it was Luke Wilson. And he's a big ass dude.
That's a big dude.
And it's me, Calvin, Luke Wilson, and some other guys. And I'm like, okay, I just got to get around these guys. Calvin, I just need to get 1-2. I think 1-2 made it. I'm like, okay, I need to get around and follow Calvin. Calvin comes out. He goes. I'm like, okay, I'm going to follow him. Then Luke comes out. And I'm just like, dude, I cannot get around this guy. Like, I'm hauling it. Like, I'm fighting for my life. And they're pulling away. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, this is crazy. So, yeah, it was a moment.
So what do you think mentality wise, like if there's a clear separation now between you and these few guys that are like match sprinting at the world level, right? UCI track champions league type stuff and Olympic prospects, and they're on the team. What do you think? Do you think that there's a clear path for you forward that helps with that mentality? Is it experience based? Is it, do you think eventually you get strong enough and confident enough in your own abilities to then it will just click for you and you can start playing chess with these dudes? Or is it something that's like, this takes, I mean, obviously it takes a while to nurture, but how does that, like, what does that gap look like to you and how do you feel it?
The gap is wide.
Okay.
But
as you would expect.
yeah.
But is it comprehensively wide? Like,
it's comprehensively wide to where they have plans set in place for each athlete. I think they're doing either like maybe individualized plans for us. I believe they are, but the plan they have now with training, like you see the progression, like the lifting. You should be at this point, you know, by this week. Like we have a really good lifting coach. I'm not sure if you know Antonio.
I actually met Antonio.
Oh, at the
Vision?
No. I met
Antonio.
Minutes before he had a really unfortunate crash.
I remember
no.
that. Yeah, at Fiesta Island TT. Yeah, he's doing fine now.
I'm glad that he's doing okay.
He's alive. But he writes out a very detailed lifting plan. Like, you know, it's a 6-week block. You need to be at this point at this block. And basically, like, you know what to do. And I feel like when there's a structure in place, like I have a plan in place, like, yeah, I'll get there at some point if I just stick to the plan and follow it. But like, I can't deviate and get upset if I mess up. Like, I have to learn to make the mistake and move forward from that mistake. So I feel like the gap being so wide, it's still a comprehensive plan to move to that point. It's just going to take a while. Like, it's not going to be, you know, at nationals, I'm not going to drop like 10-4 at nationals. There's just no way. Like, I have to lead up to that point.
Do you feel like, can you see yourself ending up there? Like, I mean, the final goal of Search for Speed is to produce athletes who can compete at an international level.
Correct. So USAC wants, medal capable, not even international.
Not even medal capable
at the time of the Olympics.
Is it Paris or LA?
LA, because Paris has already passed. So
Yeah.
Paris qualifications, which I kind of wish sometimes that the UCI structure for track cycling is like track and field, Olympic trial. If you're there and you're on, you're on. But they want you to have a point system, which basically you should be probably ready, I think like 2 years out, maybe even like 1 year out to get enough points to go to the Olympics. It's like, if you know like how like Track Champions League or Nation Cup works, you need points to go to the Nation Cup. You got to do UCI C2 races or C1 races to get a certain amount of points to go to those cups. Same with the Olympics. But I don't agree with the structure, but like I'm going to follow it, obviously, because I have to.
It's the game that you got to play.
Yeah.
But what was the original question again? Sorry.
Do you see your, like,
Oh, yeah.
do you see,
Not yet, but like, yeah, like you kind of have a little bit of like imposter syndrome sometimes coming into the new program because like, oh, it's like I made the combines, I made the trial that to get on this team. Now I'm here. Like, now what? Like, now it's like you start over again. It's a lot of like starting over. So the distance is like the light is very far in the tunnel, but like, yeah, I do see myself getting there, but I have to really like fight for it. It's going to be some of the hardest times in my life, like mentally, physically, all that stuff. So yeah.
How do you overcome those mental and physical challenges? What's your, like, what do you think it is in you? Because you've already overcome a lot of those mental and physical challenges growing up in track and field.
It's like,
sounds like a marching band too.
It's just marching band.
Yeah. I mean, carrying around a heavy ass drum's no joke.
I know. Yeah. You have to celebrate the small wins. Like, you know, like if you improve your time by like this much and you got to celebrate that. Because if you don't, your goals will be too far forward. Like even in track and field, like if you improve your time by like 0.01, you're consistent. That's all that matters. You're consistent in running that time, and you should celebrate that because you're not like, deteriorating a little bit. So I think like celebrating the small wins and appreciating like there is still progression, active progression. That's when you can appreciate it. So yeah.
I think the stuff that's so hard at your level also is that like progress comes so slowly, and sometimes it's like not even visible, like on like not even a daily level or like a weekly level, but like maybe not even at a monthly level, where it's like you can train this like one super small thing for a month and like kind of end up in, I mean, maybe not completely in the same place, but like you've moved the needle.
Yeah. You move the needle like a hair, and you have to like take the time to appreciate that, because that's when the imposter syndrome develops a little more. And once that develops something bigger, then it's uncontrollable. But yeah, you really have to like at a sprinter's level, even then like running, it's like, it's so marginal. Like you can lift so much weight and then run the same time. Like you can be as much stronger as you ever been and then still race the same time. You have to like really understand that it's something other than like being strong. It's not just that the strength. Like you have to find out what the other thing is that you need. So yeah.
What's that other thing for you right now?
Right now,
I'm
really bad. I'm really bad. Really bad.
Straight in the camera.
And, my 200, flying 200. It's like last year nationals, I was okay at a 200. Like I did like 11.4, which is okay.
Really quick for the people at home.
Flying 200 is basically a time trial that sprinters use to seed themselves in a way to where how they're going to seed themselves in the race. So the seeding goes fastest guy, slowest guy, second, third, fourth. And then sometimes if you have like a similar time, you race the guy with a similar time. But how that works is you're doing a wind-up effort where you are slowly pedaling faster throughout the wind-up. Then like around like the last lap or so, you're really hammering it down to get a stand-up sprint coming down into the start line. Then you'll do like a nice little drop effect into the 200 meters time trial line. And you follow that line at the bottom of the track all the way to this finish line. That's 200 meters. And you get a time from that seeds you in the race.
What is like kind of the sprinter gold standard for like
how fast you really are at your base. How fast
you are right now, yeah. Unless you're like a P1 or a starter, you kind of do different things. But yeah, if you're like not a P1, a starter, that's your gold standard, basically. Or if you're a kilo guy, then that's different. You have a different job.
Yeah.
But normal primary sprinter, that's your main job. And is your 200, that's your bread and butter. And right now I'm not that good at it because my wind up is, I'm doing okay now because like we have a new coach from GB, Justin Grace. I'm sure you listened to his podcast on the Peace Take.
Yeah.
You did? Okay.
I do.
Okay. So he came over and it's been very helpful so far. Like I'm just saying that because I know if he's watching, just saying that. But no, he's been very helpful. But he is able to like basically tell me like, hey, your 200 meter time trial is you're struggling at this point, this point, this point. I want you to do this time. Like try doing, think about, even or don't think at all. Just hammer it down and just hammer it through this last lap and then stand up. So I did that recently and he said, okay, like you're doing better. I just need you just to do that every time. I'm like, okay. So yeah, that's my weakest point right now is my 200. I just need to really focus on having a better line and then coming into it just with no thought, just pedaling.
Yeah.
Really, there's not really anything at all.
So the line becomes a natural thing and then you are just going as hard as you possibly can. So instead of having to like figure out your line still, that's second nature.
You practice your line going slow and you always know your line. Most people kind of have the same line. Some people are a little different. But yeah, the biggest thing for me right now is coming into it fast enough to where it's just, I'm just hauling it. Like I just need to be hauling it every time.
So the second nature type of stuff, do you feel like there's been any overlap track and field probably by the end of it was second nature for you, right? Most 99% of things that was probably the case, but now you're in track sprinting on, bikes. Are you starting to see things that are becoming second nature? And do you feel like, as a natural athlete, right, things start to become second nature much quicker than maybe other people who might struggle with that?
When I'm off the track on my road bike, it's second nature, but I'm on the track, it's still a lot of new things.
Okay.
It's still a lot of new things. Like if I'm away from the track long enough and I come back, like when I was in Detroit and I came back from riding a different track, that track is 50 degrees, so it's obviously way steeper. And I came back to LA and I kind of had like a oh shit moment because like LA it like looked almost kind of flat because their track is not as banked. So I kind of had like a scared moment. Like, oh my God, like, am I going to slip? Do I even know how banked I am right now? But there's a lot of times where I still feel it's like new to me.
LA is scary every time I go to it.
Dude, you should go to Detroit. LA is scary because it's higher. Detroit is scary because it's just, you're literally like, you're sideways for real.
You pull G's in the corners of these tracks, by the way. So for like people who don't realize like what you're doing in track cycling is there's a point where you're going so fast in the corner on 40 something or 50 something degree banking where it's actually forcing your head towards the stem of your handlebars. Yeah. And you have to kind of like push your head through the corner to not like, it's weird and it's jarring and it's rattling. And like the first time you ever go through a corner at 40 plus miles an hour, like the way that your head is being pushed and your shoulders on the bars is such a unique and crazy experience. Bless you.
Thank you.
For me, Carson, though, is like the Indianapolis Speedway. It is a cathedral of go fast, turn left.
Which I'm surprised that like more people don't go to watch.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised. I've never seen a full Carson yet, and I'm so surprised.
It's so fun to watch too. There should be more eyes on track cycling. So all of you guys watch track cycling. It's cool.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that's so scary about Carson is that Detroit is cool, but like there's something about Carson where it's like, it's where the creatures are. Like the specimens
like
within
even
Carson.
like people who do it recreationally are there. Even the Masters races at Carson are like,
specimens.
They are so fast. And I'm just like, yo, you're like 60 years old. You're still doing like 11. Dude, holy shit. Like, no joke. So,
yeah. Do you feel like you've had to fight for a spot on the team, like team
so going
USA?
through the trials and the camps. First camp was like, kind of an intro camp. Like, this is track cycling. This is a bike. This is a track bike. This is how you ride the track. So like that was a step, like another day one for me. Like it was just like good to like learn to ride the track again in Carson, how to ride the rail at, slower speeds or certain speeds. That was really more intro session. Then we started getting into a few workouts like pace lining and stuff. But then the second camp, we really got into the sprinting stuff where we were doing more 500s, 200s, 250s, whatever it may be, 350s, whatever it may be, some standing starts. And the third camp, I came out of the second camp not feeling that good. I came out of the second camp with just a really bad result that I wanted. My watts were pretty low, or my watts were okay actually. Like I think I just hit 2 for the first time. I had 2,000 for the first time, so I was doing okay in watts. But other stuff was like bike handling skills and like other than like that wasn't doing so good. So I came to the third camp already worried, and then the Monday it started with me hitting like I think they hit like 1,600 watts, like the first camp or first day of the third camp, the final camp. I'm like, oh shit, like I'm done. I'm fucked. And the camp kept going on. We had our 200s. I did okay in the 200 again, but then we had our standing starts, which is standing 250. And I've been studying a lot of like starts before because I kind of like want to be a P1. I kind of like being like more explosive. I'm an explosive lifter. I'm an explosive racer. So I did a standing lap. And I did 19.1, which was like the fastest time of everybody at the camp. I'm like, okay. And they set standards to make the team like automatically, no matter what. And the standard was 19.1. So like, luckily I hit that standard, but I still kind of felt like, damn, like I almost didn't make it. So, yeah, it was like, there was times where I felt like I didn't deserve it, but obviously like, I hit the time, like I deserve it. But yeah, there were times where I didn't feel like I did.
I was always curious because Search for Speed is new this year. And so all of the people who were on the team kind of pre-Search for Speed, kind of, I hate to be like, you got on the team like the old fashioned way, right? Where it's like Evan Boone and Dalton Waters and Hartman and all of those guys, like they got onto the team like through winning a national title, through, some kind of identification. Has there been any kind of like weird thing of like, oh, well, you're the new guy who got in this other way?
No.
They're
like Dalton.
That's good to hear.
They're so nice. No, they're always like helpful with stuff. Like basically, like if you do like a mannerism that's like they have a service course, like, if you put something back the wrong way, like, hey, like we do this way, just so we keep things clean, or like lifting, they'll help you like with lifting strategies of different things, like, oh, like, don't do this when you squat, do this instead, you'll squat better, blah, blah, blah. So they've been very helpful. Like they're just, way faster than we are. So obviously like, we can't not like compare, but like they're so much faster than we are. Like we're not even getting close to that point yet. But no, they've been very helpful. Like they're like pushing us up to like do certain things, like, even in workouts. Like they'll help us, like, give you a good like yell through the workouts, just help you push through. So yeah.
That's such a track cycling community type thing, I feel like. And it's nice to have also like people. So how does having like outside, I guess, influence help you as an athlete? I mean, have you had that before in track and field, like mentors in some way? Because it sounds like if they're like being very helpful, they're kind of like taking you and like.
I mean, like college, like how it goes, like you come in as a freshman, usually like an older person, you bond with them, they take you in. That's usually how that goes, and you kind of just stick with them. Like that's really it. But it's like kind of with us, we're such a small group that we all help each other, like men and women side different ways. Like we're all just together one team. And that's like kind of the structure that USA Cycling, that Aaron wanted to put together. It's like we're one team. Like we're pulling everyone together. We're not leaving some people out. We're pulling everyone together with us. If we're doing this workout, you're doing it too. So whatever capacity you can do it at, you're still going to do it.
That has actually been my experience as a whole in track cycling.
Yeah, I think so.
It's always been amazing to me that even at the highest level, in other ways, I think cycling is incredibly exclusionary. I think like the first time I raced a crit in LA, it was such a isolating experience.
It's also like just like so quick. Like that's it. That's your whole experience right there. It's just the crit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that like, yeah, you show up, you pin your number on, you race, you get back in your car and you go. And it's like, there was no kind of like culture of socialization. And then I remember like the first time I raced a track, it's like people are hanging out. People are hanging out before, they're hanging out during, they're hanging out after. And just like the sense of community that came with that was so different than like anything I'd ever seen kind of anywhere
like,
in sport.
Like somebody was like, oh, you need a chain ring? Here, just give it back to me next time you see me. And you don't see them for like months. But
that's crazy because in track, nobody's going to like hand you their cleats, right?
I mean,
I don't know.
Some cases, like if your teammate like breaks his shoe, and you happen to be the same size. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But you would never like, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know that much about track and field, but like, would you ever hang out with people like during a track meet with someone who's from like a different program?
Yeah, dude, all the time. Like the amount of friends that you meet coming through high school and then they go off to different schools, that's your link right there to the other school. Even people you meet through, social media or other meets, you keep that bond. Like you always know them. You see them in random places, whatever. Like every time you go to a different track meet, you see them. That's like a big deal. So yeah.
So when you think about friendships and sports, this is actually something that like I've seen a lot of, and we kind of talked about this with Terrence, is like, you actually build a lot of relationships, I think, because of the commonality you find in the particular sport that you're doing at the time. How have like some of the friendships that you've developed over time in like track and field or in like currently like track sprinting, like those friendships and things, do you find yourself finding friendships outside of sport more often than within sport? Or do you feel like in your life, what you've seen, your closest friends kind of come from sport? I feel like a lot of athletes have experiences. I'm always curious because I have a lot of friends that come from both, but I have a lot of like different aspects in life. I'm not doing something professionally in the sports realm, right? So yeah, I guess my question to you is like, having been so full time in these two things, now have you experienced a lot of your friendships coming from that and like relationships, important ones that have like built you as a person?
Yeah. Yeah, like in between the time of like track and field and with Minnesota being like, a student population, I think it's like 50,000 plus. It's a pretty big school. You meet people on both sides of the spectrum, like people who are just students, people who are just athletes. Like you meet friends from all over. And even in life, like generally I've always had people on both sides of the coin, like people who don't do sports at all, people who just work. Like I worked at a nightclub previously in the past year, one of the funnest experiences of my life. And like all those friends back there that I've met, I still talk to them today. Like it's a whole different world, but I'm part of that world and I love it. So yeah.
Maybe this is the difference between endurance athletics and sprinters.
Sprinters, yeah, we found it, guys. Yeah. This is the difference. They have friends outside of.
Yeah, all of the people who we've talked to who are like really endurance athletics are like Yeah, part of being an endurance athlete is being mal socialized. And the people that we've talked to who are like sprinters are like, yeah, I have friends. Like, what are you guys talking
Got friends from the nightclub, bro. What are you talking about?
I mean, they're grinding a lot more than we do. So
yeah.
I get it, but yeah.
How has moving, because I mean, this is again, I kind of insider knowledge. You just moved from San Diego to LA now.
What part of LA?
To Long Beach. So not even domestic LA, like Long Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How has that changed things for you?
I mean, like Tina and I, like she stayed in San Diego and I moved to Long Beach. So we live exactly 99 miles away. It's like an hour and 30-minute drive. It's not a bad drive, but training with the national team and development program, it's like, I can't make that drive every day. Even Aaron himself was like, it's not happening. I'm like, I'll try it. And I tried it. It wasn't happening. So I had to move. And then me and 3 other teammates, his girlfriend, his dog, we moved up to Long Beach and now we're doing it. Like you had to make that choice. And it's like a life-changing choice. Like it's either now or never to do it. And we made the move and yeah, it's been a big move. But once you get there, it's like all the problems kind of go away at that point. The hardest thing was moving, but yeah.
What makes you decide to take on that challenge versus just being like, that's a lot. I don't want to move. I really like San Diego. Because I feel like there's an option there.
Well, yeah, that
you
was
can
the
fold
option.
them.
Like I could have said no. Like, yeah, I loved the job I was working at the club. Like I was going to move up, through management in that club possibly. And that would have been a different life I had. I would have had a different life, obviously. But I couldn't obviously do both. I just sat down with Tina one time and I was like, okay, like I'm kind of being pulled. She's just like, just do it. Like, what are you afraid of? Just do it. I'm like, all right, that's it.
Helps to have a supportive partner.
I was just like,
endeavor,
I was like, all right,
right?
I guess I'll just do it. And then I told the coach, like, yeah, I accept it. And I had 3 months to figure it out. And I figured it out in 3 months. And then, yeah, we just left.
I think that actually speaks. There's like a quiet part there that's like there is a level of confidence and like self-belief that's like you wouldn't have moved to LA if you didn't think you could do the thing.
Yeah,
right?
like I had to have some type of idea, like, okay, like they trust in me to move there and do this thing. Why not? Like they trust me to go up there. So yeah.
I think more importantly though, you trusted you.
And Tina trusted you.
Yeah. She did. Yeah.
I mean, to encourage you to do something like that, that's hard because I think a lot of times you'll find like a girlfriend, a partner, or whatever, that doesn't, like when you have a big decision like that on your plate as an athlete, that decision, like you approach somebody with that, it's like life-changing for them as well. So you're about to change both of your lives. Yeah. And to have somebody who's supportive in that endeavor and understands the magnitude of what that looks like. Talk us through that a little bit. Like, what does that look like for you guys?
It was a fun conversation, not really, but like it was like basically like when we moved to San Diego, like Tina kind of popped the idea. Like I kind of popped the idea to her, like, oh, like if this thing follows through, like I might have to move to LA a little bit. And she was like, nah, it's not happening. She just said no. She's like, you're not moving, I'm not moving. We live together. That's it. Like that's not it. And we both didn't really understand the gravity of the situation at the point anyway, because we were still just going through searcher's fee, just going through the motions of it. I didn't understand how big it was either. I was still kind of new to track sprinting a little bit. But then once, I had the meeting and then they gave me the offer and I was like, okay, like shit, it's real. Like I have to really sit down with Tina. How am I going to tell Tina this information? And I sat down with her and I just said like, hey Tina, like it's real this time. Like I have to move up there at some point. I didn't know when, but I said at some point. And then she said, I don't like the answer. I don't like that answer that you gave me, but we have to figure it out. And in 3 months, we had to really figure out like, where she's going to live, where I'm going to live. And it was like probably I'd probably like lost years off my life for like that 3 months. It was like draining, trying to figure out just everything, all the logistics of it all, just trying to figure everything out for 2 different people. And it worked out obviously, but yeah. It was
stressful experience.
Traumatizing experience.
Yeah.
What about the nice, amazing parts that was in that 3 months? The super supportive.
I mean, yeah. No, not like you sound like
We're gonna mic up Tina here in a second.
That answer. So
No. It was just like me telling you like I'm gonna leave from our living situation, and she just like
I'm not going to LA.
she's just like I'm not going. So I was like, I was fine with her staying, but it did hurt me a little bit like to tell her that information. Like I'm just like, oh, we just moved in together.
I said, good luck, Godspeed up there.
Yeah, we just moved in together,
Godspeed up
and
there.
we moved into like our second place for the first time or second place, not for the first time, but it's just like, you know, me telling you that, like that, it took me a long time to build up to say that to you. Cause it's like, I have to tell you I'm leaving for X and X reason. That's like, you know, it just, yeah, it was bad. But
the part where I was like, you can do it.
so the part,
So Tina's saying she's very motivating and was
so yeah,
like,
no,
you
no,
can
she
do it.
is.
You're amazing.
No, I'm just saying, like, from my point, like, it was hard for me, like, to tell her that stuff.
Of course.
But once we, like, got over the initial conversation of me, like, telling her that information, she's like, yeah,
Yeah,
like,
the hard news
if you're
of
committed
it.
to it, then let's do it. Like, let's go ahead and commit to making this work. You're not that far. You're only an hour away. You can always come back, which obviously I'm here. But no, like, you can do it. You can do this thing. And that's where I kind of really started to develop a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, okay, like, can I really do this? Like, can I really leave and give up my whole life to ride bikes? Like, it sounds crazy, but like, yeah, I really had to sit down with her and just, like, you know, kind of like have reassuring conversation. Like, okay, like, I'm going to do this. Or can I do this? Can I do this? Okay, I'm going to do this. So yeah.
Is that a lot of people that we've talked to on this podcast before are people who are very serious cyclists or runners and they have another gig right now? Are you living the pro cyclist life? Do you have another job?
No, I don't have another job. Like, I'm probably gonna do like part-time work just for, like, you know, fun money. But in like to like just like always like pay rent, like not have to worry about it and stuff. But no, I don't work.
Full-time professional athlete.
Yeah.
But like, I don't consider it professional. Like, I haven't competed internationally yet. Like, I'm still competing at like national level. But maybe the moment I get to that point, then sure. But yeah, maybe like the moment they're like, if they call me over to, like, you know, hey, we want you to compete at X and X country for this race, and then maybe I'll consider it. But yeah, I don't consider it yet.
So
Is that the imposter syndrome talking?
Yeah.
I mean, if you pay your rent by riding your bike.
I don't yet though. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, until I like race internationally, I'll be like, okay, then I'm pro. I still think I'm just like, you know, in the development team.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So let's rewind a little bit to sort of like family life, right? So your mom, an athlete, right? How, did your parents push you into sports? Was this like your own thing as a kid?
Not
like,
really,
where
no.
does
They
your
just-
competitive nature come from? Like, I always wonder like the nature versus nurture thing. And I feel like, you know, we hear a lot that people are athletes when their parents are athletes or competitive or whatever that looks like. And, you know, I think being tossed into sports at a young age is like a natural thing. But I do wonder, like, you know, coming from your background and your mom being like a track athlete and running and everything, it was like, was that a natural thing for you growing up, or were they hard on you? Like, you need to do this sport and like be successful in
like,
it.
I was already in band, and
Yeah.
I just was in band in middle school, and then I really didn't think of running track until like spring of freshman year, and I just said, okay, my mom did this, let me try it. Like, there was really no push against, like, or me being pushed towards that. I just kind of just wanted to do it. It was really a me thing. And then once I started getting into it, then my mom kind of sat down, like, okay, like, look, like, you're starting to get better at this, so I'm gonna be a little bit more, I'm gonna press against you about this, because I see that you like to do it, but do you want to get better, or do you want to stay like where you're at and just do this for fun? So obviously, like, that was like a more like a personal conversation with, like, okay, like, let's, you know, find the things you need to get better at track.
It's pretty cool that the conversation was framed in that way. It's, you know, instead of, hey, she asked you what your goal is. Do you want to stay where you're at? Do you want to progress? And then also, you know, having parents that are willing to give you the tools that you need to be successful in a sport is a really cool thing to hear. So it sounds like she was like, hey, your answer to that was, well, obviously I want to be the best I can be. And she was like, okay, well, I'll give you the tools that you need to be the best you can be. This is what you got to start doing.
Yeah.
Is that like the natural? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, so you're reading it right. So she was just like, well, okay, if you want to get better than 400, you have to run, I need you to run cross country. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, okay. So obviously I had to do that, but she's right. Like, she was right. And as much as it sucked to like listen to that, she was right. And yeah.
Do you feel like you've had good mentors like along the way? I feel like a lot of my success in both like my personal life, my professional life, my athletic life have been like, I feel like I've like swung from one good mentor to one good mentor.
Yeah. So I've had a lot of good mentors in life, from like, you know, from like academic standpoint to band to track and field or just in like a neighbor. And it's just like even like seeing them now, like it's still motivating just to see them because you know like that's a really good person. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that like you ever like go back to old advice or old mentors from people, and is it fulfilling to like be like, hey, like every now and then I touch base with one of my old cycling coaches, this guy named Chris Daggs, and it's always like kind of funny for me because he coached me when I was at my strongest, and so every time I touch base with him, I'm like, hey, Chris, I've been on the decline ever since we stopped working together. Is it like fulfilling to like go back to past mentors and be like, hey, I'm like doing this thing, you know? Have you like reached back to like your high school track and field coach and been like?
So he was at a event in LA called the Mount Sac Relay. I think it's like Mount San Antonio College.
I know all about Mount Sac. That's a cross country one right there, right?
They have a cross country one, but they have a track version as well. And
Okay.
that's like a world event. People from like Thailand, Japan show up to race. It's like one of the biggest track races in the world now. I thought it was just in the US, but now people from all over the world show up. He was there coaching some of his athletes who are like professional and just whatever. And I knew he was going to be there. And I told him like, hey, I'm coming up to see him. And I saw him and he was like, you know, oh my God, like you're doing the like USA cycling thing. Like you're doing it. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm like just starting off, but it's like, he's like, no, like you're doing it. Like he believes that, you know, I can be that person because he still cares a lot. And it was like, okay, he's being very helpful. Like at that point, even now, like he still knows me as a high school kid who wanted to improve. He's like, you're doing it. So it's good to see that he already like sees that. So yeah.
What does that feel like to have somebody believe in you almost more than you do, probably?
It's kind of like enlightening because it's like you don't see it every day. You kind of see like, okay, like I had a bad training session. What can I do to make this session better? But in reality, they see it on the outside. It's like, wow, you did amazing in this session. It like, even though you struggled, you still pushed through and you finished the session. Like that's it.
Does that help with the imposter syndrome stuff that you said you've experienced a little bit of?
Yeah, it's really helpful because it's like into a point to where is the imposter syndrome really that bad? Like that's really like the question to ask yourself, like, is it actually that bad? Like, are you as bad as you think you are? Like it's that type of stuff.
Are you a track lacrosse racer posing as an elite, like potentially honestly, Olympic level track cyclist? Not to say track lacrosse dudes aren't hard as hell. Like those dudes are like gnarly, but
I believe if you can race track lacrosse,
you can win in a company.
If you race track lacrosse competitively, you are a pretty dangerous man. You're a pretty strong dude. But like, yeah, it's like, oh, I'm just like, you know, just some stupid little bike messenger. Now I race bikes. Like, how the hell did this happen? Like, the events of how this happened is like, it happened too fast to where it almost didn't seem real. So, yeah.
I think we should put Elliott Davis, track lacrosse specialist,
as the title.
Base drummer.
I don't know about specialist. Dude, track lacrosse is nuts. You ever done it? It's nuts.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Think about like racing a bike. Now you gotta get off the bike and start running with your bike.
And it's a fixie.
And it's fixed. And you gotta jump over stuff. You have to dismount a certain way. Everything has to be perfect or you'll fall. Like it's so hard. It's fun though, but it's so hard.
Have you ever thought about being a triathlete?
No.
Yeah, you're dangerously close.
Dude,
dude, you've gotten the run part down. You've got the bike part
like
down.
I can swim, but like swimming a mile, like swimming 400 meters, I'm not doing that.
Dude, I was a swimmer and I don't even like swimming a mile. So.
That's so far to swim. That's too far.
They need to do super sprint triathlons, which
Yeah.
is
What,
you
400
run a 400,
Yeah,
you
super
do a
sprint
flying 200, and then you
Honestly,
swim
that might be
50 in the
worse.
pool.
That might be worse, dude. Like 400, 200 combo, that'd probably kill you. That like doing a 400 meter dash, then hopping on a bike and doing a flying turn, that might kill you.
400 kilo.
That would be worse.
100.
That's even worse. You just made it.
So we just talked about, we talked to Terrence about this, and Terrence is a 20-year like elite running, like endurance running coach. And so we had a pretty good conversation with him about, and Alexi too, actually. There's always been this timeline on sort of your pursuit of sport, right? And Alexi said, hey, like I have these goals to like meet, and then I think I'll be like, I can hang my hat on the gravel cycling career and the cycling career and be like, I'm going to grow old and gray and do my thing. And, you know, Terrence too says that he had moments where like before he became a coach and found his role in like the running realm, he did, like, he accomplished the things, right? And his athletes accomplished things. Like, certain people go to the Olympics, that's their thing. So I guess if you had a few things, like at this point now, looking at the future of your potential, like your obvious track sprinting cycling career, right? Do you have some like big goals that you have now set for yourself, seeing these things as a reality? Is it the Olympics? Is it to compete at UCI Track Champions League? Is it to be crowned a member of the team? Is it to just beat one of those dudes in a match sprint one time? Like, what's the next like thing for you? Obviously the improvement in training is like a huge motivator, but like a lot of the athletes we've talked to, not delusions of grandeur, but they have that like huge post up in their head or this thing. Yeah. What does that look like for you? Does it exist?
USAC set a goal for us, or USAC set a goal for us, like, like Olympics. Obviously, like, that's obviously big, everyone's goal. I feel like I have goals for like, first of all, like starting like really small, getting my standing lap to be faster, to be actually, internationally competitive, to be possibly on
How
the travel
fast?
team. So like last time I tested was in December. I did 19.1. I'm pretty sure I can probably do like an 18.7, 18.8 now if I did it. And I want to get that down to like, 17.9 to be considered like, travel worthy. And then with that, like I need to get my 200 down. Obviously, like with that time getting faster, my 200 will also get faster as well. But I want to be able to at least compete at the Nation Cups events, because you have to be able to do that to go to the Olympics. You can't just go to the Olympics. There's just no way. You have to get those points from those smaller UCI races. So it's like I want to be able to at least make that travel squad at least once to be able to get those points. So yeah.
But what are the big goals?
Biggest goal is like obviously like, Olympic medalist or
gold
medalist.
Yeah, not
That's
medalist.
what I'm trying to hear out of you, man. Where's that gold medal? Where's the dog?
Yeah.
But yeah, Olympic gold. But then like you see, other nations like, the Matthew Richardsons, Nathan Hooglins, who are like people who are 220, squatting 600 pounds normally, and they're killing it. It's like you have those people to worry about, but it's good to keep those people in the back of your head, because it's like, okay, I need to get to this point. How am I going to get to this point? What steps do I need to take to get to this point? How long is it going to take? It's going to take a while. It's not going to take, it might not be next year. Like, it's going to be a few years to even be even close to that point. Like, it takes, like I said, like spring takes time. Like, it's very marginal increase of like, perspective of your little small wins. It's very slow, but once you realize it's still improving, then you're fine. Like, if you can realize that you're still improving slowly, that's the biggest goal. Because if you start to believe that you're not, then you start to decline mentally. And if you're declined mentally, then it already messes you up.
It's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of those dudes that you just mentioned kind of like fell out of their mother's wombs squatting 600 pounds. So it's, it's doing standing
I'm
starts.
doing like 460. And I'm like, oh, I'm so strong. I'm so strong. And then you see them do that, like, to warm up. And you're just like, Jesus Christ. Like, what in the world? So, yeah.
At least there are like very real measures of like, okay, this is where I need to be to like pursue the thing like seriously, and understanding like what that gap looks like. I think that's important.
Well, it's like, it's weird. Like, even in track and field, it's like humans like evolving in like a way. And it's like times that I ran in college are nothing now. Like, people run over hurdles faster than I run. And it's like
crazy.
It's crazy to see that, because it's like a man going 45 seconds in the 40. I run 46, like 8. And there's people doing like 45.9 over hurdles. And it's just like, how are you running faster than people standing straight up? So yeah, it's like humans are evolving a little bit.
Be part of the evolution.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
Is there a way to go around?
You can come this way and then cut through there probably. No, you're good. Ladies and gentlemen, Tina.
Yeah.
We'll put a round of applause in the background.
Do you have goals outside of sport though? Like, I think that we talked to Alexi about this. We talked to Terrence about this.
Yeah.
Where it's like, in a lot of ways, sport is this really amazing avenue to like do other things. Alexi is like trying to get kids into it. Terrence is talking about, how do we do education of coaches? Like, is there something outside of just getting faster that is like a real driving motivator to you?
And you did kind of allude to the search for speeds expanding too, right?
When I was in Detroit and just seeing those kids like, inspired to ride a bike, like that was like probably like a peak moment for me right there. I'm like, okay, like I would like to do that. I would like to like sit here and teach kids how to ride bikes. And if they want to go and do it more, I can teach them how to do that as well. But like, I feel like, being from Minnesota, like we have basically a bike highway. If you've ever been to Minneapolis, it's called a Greenway. It's about 4 to 5 miles of like a stretch of land where you'd never see a car once. You'll never see a car, period. It's under the highways, takes you straight to like the biggest lakes in Minnesota, 2 of the biggest lakes, I should say, compared to like the Great Lake.
I was going to say the big lake.
Yeah. Bigger lake. One of the bigger lakes in Minnesota. There's probably bigger ones. And they'll probably like fact check me on that, but whatever.
The Minnesota Lake people are
the Minnesota Lake people are
in the
seething right now. But no, like being in the bike community in Minnesota like really showed like how much community outreach, like having a bike can do wonders to a person. Like, and I like giving that feeling to other people. Like, you know, oh, bike to work this day instead of driving your car, and then bike to work the next day, or try to bike to work for an entire month. Like just like stupid, silly stuff like that. Like that's like what drives me. Like, you know, even outside of sports, just like how happy people can be on a bike. I feel like my goal outside of sports is like to go and maybe get kids in high school to like different sports to try cycling. When we were in Detroit, one of the coaches was like, hey, if you get 5 kids to do this, to be on the team for junior nationals, I'll make this a high school sport. And I'm like, shit, okay, like let's do it. Like, let's do it. And that was really like a good driving factor for me as well. Just like developing the sport of cycling through maybe even earlier on to where it's accessible for children, not where you have to like, you know, pay into it or wait till you're way older to start doing it, stuff like that. So, yeah.
I resonate so well with that. So I'm from a small town in Central California, and like it's kind of a country ass town. So, you know, growing up, if I'd have seen some dude in Lycra on a bicycle, I'd have been like, what is this dork doing on his bike? Like riding around, you know, I didn't think that way. Like all the bikes I had growing up were like BMX bikes or like, you know, mountain bikes with suspension to hit jumps and like build dirt jumps and all that stuff. And so I think that that's like really admirable. Like growing up in Vegas, you didn't see people riding bikes, right?
Too hot.
Yeah. So it's too hot. So like, you know, Bakersfield's the same way. It's like 120 degrees in the summer. How do you think you reach kids like in Detroit, for example, right? Or like Minnesota or wherever it is? Like,
I mean,
how do you think you make that connection? Because like a lot of kids are still going to be like, nah, biking's dorky. So how do you make it cool?
So how we made the connection and was actually really creative. Hold on, Tina's going to pass through.
Yeah, Tina, you're good.
Tina intermission.
Cruise back in here.
But how Rex Ainsley made that connection was he basically just came up with the idea of like, okay, we're going to go to each school. Him and the director of the Velodrome, Dale, and Lexus in Detroit, it's like, okay, we're going to go to each school. We're going to just trial kids, have them hop on the bike, do a 6-second test. Then we'll give them a little pamphlet about the track. And it was actually surprising to see how many kids were actually interested about the cycling aspect of it. Because, you know, kids, when they see cycling, think of, you know, Tour de France, Giro d'Italia, whatever. And they see this track spring, like, oh, this is like fast, it's, you know, fun. Or just track racing in general, like, oh, it's fast, it's in a circle, I'm not going, you know, 1,000 miles. And you teach them about it, and then they show up to the track, and it's like, oh, this is fun. I'm going to start doing this. We had one kid come, and when he saw me there, he was like really inspired. He's like, oh, wow, you are trialing, but you're actually riding here. I'm like, yeah, I ride track. I wasn't joking about that. And he was just like more motivated to do that. And he like connected with a master's racer there who like kind of like mentoring him a little bit. So he found a mentor there already. And it was just good to see that he was considering doing this as a sport outside of like he did, I think like 3 other sports. He did like football, wrestling. I think he did one more sport as well. But he was considering really like seriously doing track. And I'm like, you're going to give all that up to do track? Like that's a huge deal. So that's one way to do it is just go in there directly to the kids. What we're going to probably try to do soon is for like maybe like a college aspect. Say if there's a college athlete who's like, you know, like a third string runner, he's not on the relay teams. He's not on like the first running in that meet. Like he's like maybe like he'll get like 8th place, like 7th, whatever. And he's not doing so hot. Like he's going to probably just finish school, use track to finish school, and that's it. We're going to go to like those schools like USC, UCLA to try and like recruit kids from like, hey, like, you know, your sport's done, but you being an athlete isn't done. Like there's other ways to do this. And we're trying to like introduce that. We haven't developed a plan yet. Rex hasn't developed a plan yet, but like once he does, I'll be able to like, I want to help him through that plan and like be that person who like talks to those kids and be like, hey, like, I know it's like all you know is running, but there are other ways. So yeah.
I feel like what better spokesperson than you also.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it. So I've been through it.
Come from track and field.
Yeah. I think it's cool that like the things that are like important to you now are also things that you're like weirdly the poster child for, where it's like, hey, well, like how much change can a bike in someone's life enact? Well, can get them crazy. from Minnesota to the national team. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, you know, even though you were kind of done running, it's like you found this new.
It was kind of like a seamless just change. I was already like riding like for like, food delivery, and then I was already on the bike, and it was almost not even a transition at all. I just, okay, well, I'll just bike more. Like, it's just it. Yeah.
You're delivering Uber Eats and then you blink and all of a sudden
it was
on the national team.
That's basically what it was. I mean, like, food delivery, and then you just start racing and you just stop doing that. And it's like, this is just, I don't know. It was a weird time. Yeah. Strange time.
Well, you could always be the elite track sprinter that goes out and does alley cats on the weekend. I'm sure that would go over really well with the U.S. national team.
I would love to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. They'd be really excited for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, last few things wrapping up, man. Do you have anything that you want to plug? You want to talk about? Search for Speed's been great. You want to say what's up to your moms? Thank you to her for inspiring.
I know.
You.
Thank you for lighting a fire up my ass 24/7.
There you go.
No, it's now my parents have been really helpful with like just like sport motivation. They just like a lot of like where if you're already doing it, like don't think you can't do it because you're already there. And it's like if you're already there, you shouldn't have a problem with like, feeling like, okay, I'm gonna lose. Don't come in thinking like, okay, I'm not fast enough. You're already there. Like in the Big Ten championship, like I was in the 400-meter final. Like there's guys faster than me, but anything can happen. Like anything, you can all of a sudden be in front of them, and then you have to just deal with it because you're the front guy. And they're really helpful. It's just like being that inspiration, like where you're just there, be that person. You're not, Elliott. You're the person in the Big Ten championship final. Like you have to be that person. So yeah, they've been a big help with that. Yeah.
Love that.
Any final plugs? Anything that any shout outs you want to give?
Let me think. Shout out Reynolds Wheels. They do a big help with me on the road. How I met through them was my mother. No, I'm gonna get Tina's looking over. Tina's like, shout out me. No, shout out Reynolds Wheels. But how I got into that was my mom knew somebody who plugged like I think they're like, I don't know his name. I don't know what their position was, but he plugged them saying like, hey, like one of my cousins is in the national development pool for cycling. Oh, let's get on the phone with him. And I got on the phone with Hayes Performance Systems, who makes the brakes. You know what Hayes is? Mm-hmm. They make the brakes. They make very good mountain bike brakes. Their Dominion mountain bike brakes are very nice. They also make wheels because they're partnering with Reynolds. And I just needed some wheels for road because I was riding on like some really shitty aluminum ones, and I needed something better. So I got in touch with Reynolds. I'm an ambassador for them, and they sent me some wheels.
You got a code or what, dude?
I do got the code.
Just plug the code. This is how this works.
So the code, my bad. So the code is Elliott Rides Reynolds. I'll give you 50% off wheels. I think the code also works for brakes. It's not supposed to work for brakes. But
oh, all right.
It's not supposed to work for brakes, but you can get some brakes too.
Link is in the description.
Link is in the description. But yeah, no, big shout out to Tina. I would not be here literally anywhere in San Diego, even near California, without Tina. Her push for me to do anything, whatever it is always helpful. It's a big drive. And I love her way too much about it. Like she's always the one who tells me like, why aren't you doing this? Like if you want to do it, then why aren't you doing it? I'm like, yeah, you're right. So most of my answers to her questions are, yeah, you're right. Because she is right. And
that's the right. Yeah.
And it's always good to like have that support system and be there for you. Like it's like, in the days are dark, like I tell her something and she's like, is this really that bad? Like, let's like break down like why this sucks for you. And then let's see how we can improve on it. It's like, she's very like nurturing and like a good person. If you want to like get through an issue or if you want to just vent, she's there for both sides. But I prefer to be the solving part and not just venting. But yeah. So yeah.
That's it. Cash App, Venmo.
Right.
Cash App, Venmo. All right.
She takes insurance too. Yeah.
Sliding scale for those that need it.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, we'll drop Elliott's info in the description as well. Now that we can actually use links in our episodes, it took us like a month to do that. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
You're the YouTube guy.
They were bamboozling us, man. I couldn't put
If you
extra
need wheels, you know who
links.
to talk to.
if you need wheels, yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for being on, man. Like, it's really cool to hear about your journey. We will definitely be doing a follow-up as you continue to develop in the track cycling space. I'm really excited to see where that goes, man. It's just funny to me to like see somebody growing up, marching band, track and field. You think it's all done, and then Search for Speed comes along out of nowhere because you happen to be in San Diego, and now you're potentially racing.
Like my
on a
life started
national
over
team.
like 4 times.
In 1 year, man.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's still like real. It's still just like out of this world to me sometimes. Like I'm training, like I have like I'm training on like a freaking like, $15,000 bike. Like what am I doing? Like what am I doing? So yeah, no, it's fun. I love it.
Dude, we love to hear it. And I don't think there's a better person that could have gotten the opportunity. So
I don't think so either. I think we also I want to plug the fact that now, as we've accumulated like a library of some content and stuff, and as some of the athletes that we've had on have gone on and either succeeded or failed in things, that we are going to start doing some shorter form kind of follow-up stuff.
yeah.
And so, we're not necessarily sure what that is going to look like, but, a lot of the people that we've shot episodes with were right before they did really cool things. So we're going to probably drop some short, maybe follow-up episodes.
Maybe intermediates after like every 10 or something like that. We can do like a follow-up episode with like 3 or 4 people, but yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So that's our plug for some new stuff coming down the pipeline in the podcast. Thank you so much, Elliott.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Like, subscribe.
Comment.